Welcome back to the next lesson. By this point, you should have laid in some good flat color on your wizard and you're ready to move on to the next step. As you can see here, I have done the same with my wizard and I'm ready to add in shadows for this lesson. First thing we're going to do is come over to the new layer menu, make a new layer. I'm going to call it shadows. And then what I'm going to do is right click on that layer and create a clipping mask like we did with the color layer. We want this to be only on the line layer. The next thing is to take the shadow blend mode and turn it to multiply. We want everything on this layer to be darker than normal. We're then going to come over, we're going to choose a nice hard round brush from our menu, and we're going to eyedrop that background gray. As we move in, all we're going to do is use our brush, set to normal mode, 100% opacity, and we're going to come in and we're just going to add in some shadows. The important thing to remember when you're adding in shadows for this assignment is to remember where's the focal point of the light. Well, the focal point of our light is going to be that book that is resting right in front of him. So we know that the energy is powerful. We know that it's going to be exploding outwards from that book. So we are able to come up to different areas of his head and his face and his body and add shadows as we deem fit. Now what I mean by as we deem fit is that no two artists' shadows will be the same. We certainly can have shadow in the same areas where we know shadows will be. But if you have more shadow on a sleeve, or if you have more shadow on a hand than someone else, it's perfectly okay, as long as you are trying to really kind of understand where that light's coming from and are trying to really actually put it where it would be. One thing I'm going to say about the hair is that we have some lines in the hair to work with here. But for the most part, your best bet may be to follow them and then just kind of stroke up like this. And it may look sloppy, it may look unorganized, but again, we have some pathways here to follow, but not many. And remember, this is your wizard. It doesn't have to look perfect, it doesn't have to look the same as everyone else's. This is arcane light bursting forth from this book, so it's not going to follow a set pattern. And I'll show you what I mean when we go to the next lesson. You'll see what I did with my hair. I'm going to go down here to the book. As I said before, the book needs to be a focal point of the light, so we know that directly underneath the book is going to be some darker shadows. Now remember, we are going to come back in a future lesson, and we are going to touch up this book. We are going to touch up everything with darker shadows, with accented highlights, with everything. And so if you are the type of person that really likes to jump into those details head first right when you start, I might ask that you hold off just a little bit, because the temptation is there just to spend, an hour just on the book, or to spend an hour just on his face and adding in all the super dark tones right now. Let's hold back on that and just focus on laying down this first coat of shadows coming from the book and making it look nice. Up there. Now again, this guy does not have fingernails for whatever reason. Maybe his sorcery or his alchemy was just too powerful that blew off his fingernails, but you can come in here and you can just kind of start laying down some shadows. Follow along these creases, especially dark there. here. I mean, his hand is almost practically going to be in the book, in the center of the explosion. So it's okay to get a little wild with the shadows right here as we move in. Again, we will be laying a further base coat down later, a more refined coat. We are just blocking it in for right now. You don't have to worry on this step either about sampling colors for the different articles of clothing, such as the robe or the skin color. This gray will be good for the entire time. And again, this entire section will be subjective up to you. If you feel like that the light wouldn't go as far as I'm shading in, then by all means on yours, you are free to make that change. I'm just trying to simply come in and let's say that this whole part's going to be in the shadow. Let's make that bigger. I don't want to be too super nitpicky because I know everyone's going to be doing their own thing. What I will do is come up on the sleeve and say that this sleeve is going to be visible to the book. So I'm going to kind of draw it like this, like that energy is bursting forth and just kind of hitting this side that is not facing the book. Okay, that looks pretty decent for right now. I'm going to hop over to the hand over here. And I'm just going to add in my shading kind of along this side. We're going to kind of come down here. And again, this little area here, I'll come back and fix that later. This should be that gray in the middle. But let's come in and let's add some shadow to the outside of the fingers. Especially when we do the screening process in the next video, you don't want to add too much light, too much shadow. You don't want to get too carried away because a little goes a long, long way, especially with light. Especially the lighter you try to make things. So it's on there. Kind of come in like so. I'm going to move down here. Just kind of color in. Obviously the explosion's coming this direction. So this whole entire section of the robe over here would probably be in the shadows. And then right here, what I'll probably do is relegate it to these little creases. Kind of get this bottom part of the robe in the shadows. Again, you are free to express this explosion how you wish. I'm going to say it kind of peeks down from the book a little bit right there, but the rest of it is good. Folds of clothes are especially vulnerable to shadow, so when his cape has this major fold in it, and this crease in it right here, it's probably not going to let too much light going down it. Maybe something along those lines. Okay. So I'm going to kind of wrap this up. I'm going to add a little bit more shadows in some places, especially on his face. When we come back, I will show you the work that I did with the face, kind of explain how I did it, and you'll see what I mean by rhyme or reason with the beard. What I'm primarily going to be doing is sticking to these lines like this adding in shading along the bottom parts. I'm just kind of following some of these natural creases. In fact, I'll just stick with you and talk now. Okay, this is kind of what I'm talking about. I'm going to kind of leave it like this. When we come back for the next lesson, we'll talk about highlights. I'll probably have a different version loaded up with some shadows I did in the classroom, but it'll look pretty similar to this. Go ahead and explore where you want to add your own shadows to give your own look. Remember, we're keeping these pages and this opening of the book as our focal point for our light and shadows. So we'll see you in the next lesson.